Thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Do you feel like you're missing out on something? Make life more rewarding with Pacific Points. Earn and redeem points for free fuel at Shell, vouchers at Foodies, and bill rebates and free load at IT&E. You can even turn points into United Mileage Plus miles. Sign up today by visiting PacificPoints.com. Pacific Points, the rewards program that lets you do more, get more.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
As contagious as chickenpox. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That, according to the New York Times, is how the Centers for Disease Control is characterizing the Delta variant of the coronavirus in its internal reports, which also suggest the variant is more likely to break through protections offered by the vaccines. Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel says there will be breakthrough cases.
If the vaccine is 85% effective against the Delta variant, and you're in an area with a lot of COVID, there's a 15% chance that you're going to get it, but most vaccinated people are getting a much milder case.
Dr. Siegel says he does not think vaccinated asymptomatic people need to wear face masks. President Biden ordering most federal employees to get vaccinated and to prove it or face consequences at work.
All federal employees not only have to declare their vaccination status, unvaccinated workers would be required to submit to twice-weekly COVID testing and not be allowed to travel for work.
Fox's Kevin Corke, the president also telling the Secretary of Defense to order vaccinations for every U.S. service person. The president said it's not clear he has the authority to order every American to get vaccinated, but says they're looking at it. Severe weather damaging homes in Ohio and Pennsylvania. In Wintersville, Ohio, near the West Virginia border, Evelyn Johnson says a tornado slammed into her neighborhood.
You can hear the wind picking up, and by the time the wind really got going after those funnel clouds started, it sounded like there was a train coming. It sounded like whistling.
Then more than 24 homes were damaged. And in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, north of Philadelphia, at least 4 mobile homes have been destroyed and a car dealership heavily damaged by a tornado. He was a voice for the state of Michigan and for the U.S. auto industry in the U.S. Senate for more than 3.5 decades. Former Michigan Senator Carl Levin has died after a bout with lung cancer. He was 87. America is listening to Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Congress has agreed to spend $2 billion for improved security at the U.S. Capitol.
Overwhelming approval in the House and Senate sent an emergency funding bill to President Biden. The bipartisan agreement spends $2.1 billion to increase security at the U.S. Capitol, shore up funding for the U.S. Capitol Police, and reimburse the National Guard for its deployment of troops after the January 6th riot. Funding is also included for a special immigrant visa program to speed up resettlement of Afghans who work closely with U.S. forces during the 20-year war there. The bill passed the Senate 98-0 and the House 416-11. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A day after Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order to give law enforcement in the state the power to stop vehicles carrying migrants who might be infected with the coronavirus, Attorney General Merrick Garland has told the governor to walk it back. A federal judge has also asked the White House to stop releasing COVID-positive migrants into the community. Many of the Democrat state lawmakers from Texas are still in Washington trying to prevent a voting rights bill from passing, some of them testifying to Congress on Thursday.
Several Texas Democratic lawmakers testified about the new voting bill before the House Oversight Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, including Nicole Collier. She said the bill required someone to put either their last 4 digits of their Social Security number or their driver license number on their mail-in ballot, and if it didn't match the one they used to register to vote 20 years ago, their ballot would be tossed. Texas Republican Congressman Pete Sessions piped up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would ask that you remind each of our witnesses that they have taken an oath to tell the truth.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib then said Collier should get to defend herself. The chairman said there would be time for clarification during questioning. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumont. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
Relax and unwind with daily happy hours at the Westin Resort Guam. Enjoy 30% off our newly curated menu. Bud Bucket special starting at $20 or Leaping Horse wine specials for only $5. Available from 5 to 7 p.m. at Mix at Cha-Cha-Cha or savor the flavors of Taste Restaurant, featuring international cuisine and your favorite seafood station on ice. Enjoy bottomless Bud Family beer and Leaping Horse wine specials while you groove to the smooth sounds of Jesse and Ruby. Call 647-1020 for reservations. Budweiser reminds you to please drink responsibly.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Your congressional office would like to remind you that pandemic unemployment assistance is set to expire on September 6th of this year. We encourage the people of Guam to seek out active employment as much as possible, as jobs continue to remain limited, and we want to prevent hardship for our people at the conclusion of the PUA program. Thank you, and Situas Mahase.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, even on a Friday, which is our least favorite day here on Tall Tales because it means that we're going to have to go 70 hours from 1800 today until 1600 on Monday. No Tall Tales, no tailgaters. It's going to be tough. We'll make it, and we're going to make the very best that we possibly can out of today. So let's start out with Zemi Ikotny. And this is what the Daily News says today. Our view, U.S. must be transparent when it denies Guam foreign labor visas. Well, I'm all for transparency, but I'm wondering how much transparency government of Guam officials can expect from others when they seem to be so opposed to it themselves. Anyhow, the federal government needs to be much more open and transparent with the reason it denies foreign labor visas for Guam. Governor Lulian Guerrero met with the acting Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to resolve what her administration said is a growing number of denials of foreign labor visas. In our discussion, I stressed the need for an immediate solution to the high rate of application denials for projects both inside and outside the fence, and underscored the direct impact to Guam's economic growth, especially at this pivotal point of rebuilding and recovery, the governor stated. The continued lack of skilled construction labor to complete these projects will result in increased construction and, will result in increased construction, housing, and real estate costs. The 2021 National Defense Authorization Act expanded Guam's ability to seek foreign labor for construction projects outside the military fences. In January, Homeland Security announced workers from the Philippines were once again eligible for the H-2B program after being off the list since 2019. The Guam Contractors Association and a group of local businesses that use foreign workers under the H-2B visa program sued the federal government in October 2016 over nearly a 100% denial rate. In January 2018, District Court of Guam Judge Francis Tydenko Gaywood's ruling in the H-2B issued stated, the employers have established near certain substantial and irreparable harm, and the balance of the equities and public interest factors weigh heavily in their favor. Typical language in a decision dealing with a suit in search of an injunction. The lack of foreign labor has increased the cost of construction projects on island and caused lengthy delays, impacting commercial and residential construction. The federal government argued the H-2B visa program was abused in the past. It should have identified and corrected individual abuses instead of punishing the entire Guam construction industry and the community with higher prices and delayed services was just plain wrong. The local administration said U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services would assess administrative rules, regulations, and policies that may have led to the recent increase in denials. But assessment isn't enough. Given the federal government's history in this area, what's needed is complete transparency and detailed explanations every time the U.S. decides to deny a Guam petition for foreign labor visas. Can't argue with a thing. Seems right to me. All right, let's go on to the Post. New approaches needed to catch litterers and thieves. I wonder if this is about Steve's motorcycle again. During the recent Liberation Day weekend, not everyone was reflecting on the 77 years since thousands of U.S. troops shed blood to end the Japanese occupation of Guam in World War II and ended the suffering of Guam Chamorros during the brutal years of the Japanese military control of the island. There were people who went to the beach to get drunk and eat and litter. Yeah, well, we can't have that, can we? This eating at the beach has got to stop. Some beachgoers left their trash behind, bottles of alcohol, plastic trash, food containers, and other items that should have been bagged after at the day of beach and disposed of properly were left behind, particularly at Tengisan Beach. The sight of the beach's turquoise water and white sand was marred by the trash that beachgoers left behind and was strewn about the area. For many who volunteer to clean up Guam beaches, the continued disregard for basic decency can be disheartening. But there will always be good, civic, and kind-hearted Guamanians who can't give up doing good deeds, even with bad neighbors in our midst. The holiday weekend was also marred by at least one theft case that victimized people who parked their vehicle to watch the drone and fireworks show in Tumon Bay. Their car was broken into. A set of credit cards was stolen and used to buy alcohol and other merchandise, according to court documents. Often we hear the phrase, "Enafa Malik," the Chamorro term or concept of restoring harmony or order. That's not what it means, no. We also often hear about Guam's welcoming Hafa Day spirit. This is a different Guam, a far cry from the days when, as some of the island's elders reminisce, doors and windows were left open and homeowners didn't have to fortify their homes with gates and fences and guard dogs. Now many also have security cameras. And some who happen to be the chief of police even ask the nearest precinct to do routine patrol checks in order to make sure that his motorcycle is not stolen. Our homes and offices have become fortresses because we no longer trust that our personal space and private property will be respected. So what do we do with the problem of trashing the island's beaches and people stealing stuff and taking away the possessions of others who worked hard to acquire them? We can start by changing what's not working. At beaches, we need to have eyes that won't look away and won't sleep. The same wildlife security cameras that are used to watch movement, even in the dark, can be used to catch the litters and thieves on the beaches and in public parks. I have an idea here. We need to have some undercover cops. People that, dress in bahaki and just go down and hang around the beach and watch, and when they see someone throwing trash around, slap the cuffs on them.
They could even wear a costume, like a garbage can, because nobody will touch or bother them.
They'll be safe.
They'll be safe.
Yeah. The enforcement and follow-through on those caught littering and stealing should be consistent. I'm going to change consistent to harsh. The catch and release system can no longer continue without deterrence and proper and fair restitution. Security can also be added in other public parks and beaches to ensure we catch the burglars and thieves who target beachgoers, tourists and locals alike, and violate their peace. The same old system is not working. Let's change at least one thing. Let's have more electronic eyes and ears on the ground. On the ground?
Well, that's where all the trash is.
Yeah. Well, keep your eye, let's see, how does it go? Keep your ear to the ground, your back to the wall, your nose to the grindstone, and try to avoid the chiropractor. All right, so much for post. No blue stars today. All right, I've got the card. And here's what we got on the card for today. We've got Chris Duenas versus Therese. Rodney Jacob versus the Social Security Administration. Gita versus Sampson and ENC America. I'm sorry, not Gita, GEPA, Guam Environmental Protection Agency. Typo there. Lefties versus the cops, and so on. And then I added something after I put the card together. I was still browsing around on the internet, and I decided to add this one. Jason Whitlock versus Simone Biles. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. Simone Biles. If you don't know who Simone Biles is, she may be the greatest gymnast there ever was. If you've ever seen any video of her in action, it's fantastic what she can do with her body.
I think they even banned some of her winning moves because none of the other gymnasts can catch up to her.
No one could ever do it. Yeah. So she's been a champ. She was a gold medalist in the 2016 Olympics. She was on the Olympic team this year. And then she pulled a Barnes. She bailed out. And it was not, not the kind of thing that anyone, even me, I didn't want to be too critical of her when she bailed out for the reason that she advanced. But then the left just couldn't stop singing her praises. Forget about how great a gymnast she was. She's done something far more significant than that. She quit. So a guy named Jason Whitlock on Red State, a good website, deals with it. And he said, the title of it is Jason Whitlock, Simone Biles and the Celebration of Quitting. And here's what he says. Maybe it's because we knew the 2021 Tokyo Olympics were going to suck. Well, while few Olympic experts could have predicted the disastrous start for America's Olympic team, some of us were pretty sure woke would weave its way into the games somehow. Of course, woke weaves its way into everything now. Maybe that's because of hammer thrower Gwen Berry despicably turning her back during the playing of the national anthem during the medal presentation in the Seattle Olympic trials, in which she came in third. That was pretty bad. She covered her head with a T-shirt, and and then she had a good excuse, though. She said, I was set up. They told me they wouldn't play the national anthem until the end. Now, what a dirty trick to play on someone who qualified to go to the Olympics as a United States representative. What a dirty trick to play on that person playing the national anthem. That is just so. She ought to sue. I mean, what's this country coming to? Going on with the article. Or maybe it's because of the embarrassment of professional sports in America after the aftermath of George Floyd's death, not the least of which was the pathetic prostration of NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and NBA Commissioner Adam Silver before the Black Lives Matter altar and their condemnation multiple times of pretend systemic racism. Point. I, for one, was not going to be surprised by anything that happened relative to Team USA in Tokyo. From the men's basketball team's embarrassing loss to France. Yeah.
That was harsh.
American basketball team. I didn't even know they played basketball in France. I thought they played, no, they don't play soccer. Yeah, they play soccer. They play pretty good soccer. France is bicycle racing, right? Yeah.
Tour de France.
Yeah, France is bicycle racing. Basketball, you get beat by France? What do you think of that, Frenchie? From the men's basketball team's embarrassing loss to France and the woke women's soccer team's startling 3-0 loss to Sweden. Actually, it couldn't have happened to a nicer bunch of girls. I am not a Megan Rapinoe fan. No. You know, if you want to have someone really take your sport down the drain, get Megan Rapinoe to train that person in public relations. The Simone Biles did what she did. She quit over health issues. Look, to be clear, I'm not in a position to pass judgment on Simone Biles one way or the other, and why she withdrew from the Olympics, nor do I have a desire to do so. I'll leave that to, quote, late comedian George Carlin. A quote from the late comedian George Carlin, who said, "Never underestimate stupid people in large groups." But someone who is very interested in sharing his views on the Biles story is sports journalist and culture critic Jason Whitlock, my favorite guy at what he does. In a Thursday op-ed posted to The Blaze, my fellow Hoosier. Now, a Hoosier, if you don't know, is somebody from Indiana. My fellow Hoosier brought the hammer down on Biles and, quote, the celebration of quitting. As Whitlock sees it, the pace of change in America culture is too rapid. Then a hot take on the left's near deification of George Floyd, making George Floyd into a god. The pace of change in American culture is too rapid. A contemplative and reflective nation has turned rash and emotional. Feelings drive the mood and attention span of citizenry. Fear fuels our decision-making. George Floyd is more revered than George Washington. It's not even close. Yeah. Three men, the Hollywood movie, Three Men and a Baby, is no longer a Hollywood movie featuring Tom Selleck, Ted Danson, and Steven Guttenberg. It's the ideal family, according to the BLM LGBTQIA plus alphabet mafia. Three men and a baby is the ideal family. The same group says gay is the new black. Well, you know, because they're discriminated against, and gay is the new black. And the same group says Jesus and Christianity are more polarizing than Allah and Islam. These are not exaggerations. Heady stuff and true. Whitlock then launched into the hot topic, Biles quitting. But nothing has changed more rapidly than our position on quitting. In 48 hours, Olympic gymnast Simone Biles transformed the felonious act of quitting into a deed of breathtaking heroism. On Tuesday, after a poor vault, Biles withdrew from Olympic team competition, citing mental stress. The next day, she announced she would not compete in the all-around competition. U.S. Olympics CEO Sarah Hirshland called Biles' act incredibly selfless, Whitlock continued. That's not a typo. Hirshland did not call it selfish. She intentionally used the word selfless. USA Gymnastics, in a separate statement, labeled Biles' decision an act of bravery and courage. You know, when I was reading this, I was reminded of Winston Churchill. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight them in the schoolyards.
There's a lot of projection going on here.
We shall fight them on every street in our islands. But no matter what, we shall never give up. We shall never quit. And 1,000 years from now, folks will say this was their finest hour. If only Winston had understood, you know, well, you know, these Germans are tough, and maybe we just better hang it up. Yeah, no sense carrying it too far. Hirshland did not call it selfish. She intentionally used the word selfless. USA Gymnastics, in a separate statement, labeled Biles' decision an act of bravery and courage. Athletes, celebrities, and political figures across the country took to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook to let Biles know her decision to quit was appropriate. And in Whitlock's mind, there's nothing more American than quitting. When the going gets tough, the tough claim mental stress was just too high, adding, I reject this new standard. I can't get on the right side of this at all. You know, I mean, it's just everything. It just goes against everything that I thought was the American ethic. We don't give up. Just because something's hard, we don't turn tail. You know, we look at really difficult tasks as challenges, not as the fulcrum for an excuse. Yeah. So, you know, this morning my breakfast didn't go very well. So I was really thinking about calling you up, Jose, and saying, Jose, Tall Tales this afternoon, I'm going to take a mental health day. That's what Naomi Osaka said at the Wimbledon tennis match. So this has now become the new woke thing. You know, to be really good at doing something, be on a team, and then just in the middle of everything say, I'm stressed out. I'm going to have to quit. Hooray!
Well, see, that's the thing. I think there's these pendulums of perspectives of what she's done makes us look at something like quitting as we're perplexed at why she did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we also know that there is a foundation of the American spirit, and I know a lot of these separatists on Guam are going to say, oh, you know, that's just a colonial mind. But no, there's a spirit in America. One of the reasons why the Olympics happen is because it's about the spirit of your country.
Yeah.
You know, to go for it, even if you lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still not on the fence, but I can see both sides of what's happening right now for her not going forward. But at this point in the game, it's kind of too late to quit.
Well, if I were to look at it from her standpoint, and only Simone Bowles knows her own mind, or as we could say in the church, only God knows her heart, right? Yeah. So just like the columnist here, I'm not going to second guess her on that. But these people who come out and cheer for
exactly.
her, that's the tough part.
Mm-hmm. And
that's so much ties into what I read, what I was dealing with the last 2 days with the Boy Scouts. You know, carrying this a little farther, what's left of the Boy Scouts now, no doubt, is going to have a merit badge that has a big Q on it, right? And unless you have quit something, you know, some endeavor that you were pretty good at, you can't become an Eagle Scout, because that's the new American way. And if you want the crowds to cheer you on and see you as a hero, don't practice and just be really, really good at what you do. I mean, guys like Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, these guys who were really good at the sports, nope, they just didn't get it. They should have waited till they were at the top of their game and then said, I have to quit. Yeah, then they would have been lionized by the left.
Yes.
And of course, this whole exercise here, once again, stands for the left, the war on meritocracy, wherever we can find it. We don't like meritocracy because meritocracy is racist. So we can't have standardized tests. We can't have schools that concentrate on the gifted students, on and on and on. And who better as a soldier against meritocracy, or as the emblem, than Simone Biles, who happens to be a BIPOC, a black she's a black, she's an African American. But what a sorry chapter on people who are able to mold our opinions because they have a public voice. So how many kids now are going to grow up with the idea that, you know, it's okay to be good at something. It's okay to practice and work hard and develop some skills, but you have to quit if you really want to hit the top. Okay, we're coming up on our first break here, and I've got R. Carl. You know, talk about meritocracy. Whoa. All right.
To the greatest generation who endured the Japanese occupation, To those who risk their lives for our freedom, to those who continue to protect our freedom and keep our island safe, we thank you. To the people of Guam, our viewers and generous supporters, happy Liberation Day from PBS Guam KGTF Channel 12. Catch the 3-part special program 77th Guam Liberation Village to Village We Are Survivors on demand on PBS Guam's YouTube page.
Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting.
Chili's is pairing up premium entrees with 2-in-1 entree selections starting at $19.99. Indulge in mouth-watering combos like the sirloin and ribs combo, the ribeye and jalapeno sausage combo, or the savory sirloin and ancho salmon combo. All served with delicious mashed potatoes. Dine in today and enjoy the best of both worlds flavor experience with Chili's 2-in-1 entree selections. Available for a limited time. Chili's on the 2nd floor of the Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. Savor the moment.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Sa question niya si Colin Clark sa opigwe. So no bidadaho guajos and si Jose Pagunay y programata. Pues cuentos ni si Carlito. Good afternoon, Carlito.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon, Jose, and your Tall Tales Truth Posse.
Colin Clark.
Yeah, Colin Clark, yeah.
Colin Clark, I'm sorry. Colin.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in a little bit about this. I've been reading a little bit about it on my Facebook news posts that I've been seeing popping up. And to me, this is just another manifestation of the left's desire to deconstruct America and Western capitalist societies in general. There's a critical part of the Communist Manifesto in which Marx says the only way that his goals could be reached the only way it could be attained is by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. And that means all religion, the nuclear family, private property, freedom, democracy, patriotism, everything. And that is at the heart of critical theory. And critical race theory is just an offshoot of that. Another thing I was thinking about is that Simone, who is, I think, is a spectacular athlete. I mean, she's so good that officials were actually debating penalizing her so that other athletes could have a fighting chance, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But I think taking on that title, and she does wear this symbol on her gymnastic gear, you know, a goat. And I think maybe taking that on, that title, kind of gives her the mindset, this mental frame that there's nowhere else to go. She can't possibly grow. I think.
Well, you know, Carl, I could kind of empathize with that. You know, being the best talk show host on the island here, is there room for growth? But go on with your story.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you know, I think Michael Jordan was given his title of greatest of all time, and now LeBron is, you know, trying to take it. I don't think he will, but because the fans gave it to him, you know, and the NBA observers felt, and many of them still feel, he's the greatest. But that wasn't something I think he took on himself, and I think maybe her taking on that title herself and taking it seriously gives her the mindset that, you know, I can't improve, I can't grow, and that is really, I think, a negative place to be. I don't think Michael Jordan ever felt he was good enough. He was just constantly driving himself to get better and better, and inside, I don't think he ever felt like he was the greatest. He was always striving to be better.
But you know, with Simone, she decided she was going to bail after she flubbed. Yeah, and that kind of tells you something about her mindset. She made a mistake in one of her routines, and that not long after that, taking a mental health, she's going to have her mental health dealt with, etc. So,
well, she actually did something that was not of GOAT standards, greatest of all time standards.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the pressure I'm talking about, is that, she constantly felt.
So that's more like, I hope I can hang on to it, than
exactly.
There's no other place to go.
Yeah, it's like the astronauts that had gone to the moon. Many of them, when they came back, needed psychological counseling because they went into deep depression. They'd set this far-off goal that they'd strive for years and years, and they finally got there. And when they came back, it's like, now what? There's nothing. I mean, I've gone to the moon.
I never checked this out, but I heard once upon a time that Alexander the Great conquered the world and then committed suicide because there was nothing left for him to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the danger with the goal mindset. Is that you're a failure. Scott Adams pointed this out. The problem with the goal mindset as opposed to the systems mindset. He said with a goal mindset, you're a failure 99% of the time until you reach your goal, and then there's this spike of happiness and joy, and then you're right back where you started. You've got to set another goal or goals, and it's just a continuous round and round and round. And just one last observation is that I saw something where Simone was saying that she didn't feel she owed America anything. She didn't owe them, a Olympic win or, national pride. And, that's her choice to take that view. But I thinking about it, I think I look on the Olympics as each athlete striving for personal excellence, and the national pride is kind of just a side effect of that, kind of sharing in their happiness at achieving a level of personal excellence. So anyway, that's just my view about that. We're kind of tagging along, riding on the coattails of these athletes with their personal journey, and we're kind of benefiting from their achieving a goal that they've strived for, many of them, for years. So anyway, these are just.
I have to make a comparison here, Carl.
Sure.
We know what Simone Biles did, and I'm going to tell you that at the 1988 Seoul Olympics, my wife was a contestant, and she didn't quit. So how should we deal with that?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for not quitting, even if you lose. I think you remember that Olympic moment where that gymnast had injured, I think it was her leg or her foot or her ankle, and she went on and she did a routine on the balance beam, I believe, where she was supposed to land on 2 feet, but she was forced to land on one because the other one was injured, and she accomplished it. She actually did it. And it was like one of those Olympic moments, where everyone jumped up and shared in that happiness, that she had been confronted with a incredibly difficult moment and she'd overcome it. So I wish it'd have ended that way, but, it is what it is. She's a fantastic athlete, though. I don't want to take anything away from her, and she's under tremendous stress. So, it's I can't even imagine what the kind of stress she's at. But I think it would have been better if she could have just pressed on, and regardless of what happened, she would have been an example to many young people.
Well, again, as I said earlier, we don't know what's in her head. Only God knows what's in her heart. So I'm not going to be super critical. I'm going to put aside my super criticality that I almost always bring to every topic on the show. But I'm not really too excited about all of the people who said what a wonderful thing she did. And right now, Carl, I've got another person in the green room who says that you and I have no clue of what we're talking about. It's none other than Jane Flores. So I'm going to say goodbye to the most dangerous man in the room.
Okay, well, I'll listen in. That would be interesting.
Most dangerous man in the room.
All right.
And I'll say hello to Jane Flores. Tell us that we don't know what we're talking about, Jane.
Yeah, well, I don't know your background or Carl's background, but have you ever flipped upside down in the air purposefully?
Not when
have
I
you
was
ever performed
not when
gymnastics?
I was sober.
Okay, all right.
Or not when I wasn't on a motorcycle, but go on.
Okay. So I competed in gymnastics in high school and college many, many years ago. And I can tell you, and you said earlier that, Simone bailed after she flubbed. And I can tell you, watching her first vault, that first vault, I can tell you the exact moment you could see where she lost her air sense. And for a gymnast, and so, it happens, it's rare, it happens usually under pressure, when they're under extreme pressure. But in gymnastics, when you perform gymnastics, usually you get into gymnastics because you have a good air sense. You have a good sense of where you are in the air at all times.
A doctor friend of mine gave me the scientific name for that. It's actually one of the senses, body orientation, but I can't remember the. Maybe Jose can find it for me. Go ahead, Jane.
And if you don't have that, or you lose that, you can injure. Well, you can kill yourself. You can die because you land on your head instead of your feet. And if you watch her first vault, she starts, and when she blocks off of the table, off the vaulting table, and she goes up in the air, and your arms go in an exact position to make you twist. And you could see where she was starting to twist, and then all of a sudden, one of her arms went out and started flailing. And that's because she lost where she was in the air. And when you do that, and when you don't have that sense, you cannot go on. You just can't, because you'll either injure or kill yourself. And there's no way you can do that on vault. You can't do it on bars. You can't do it on floor. It's just, you can't go on. And she said, and she's under tremendous pressure. I mean, this girl is 24 years young, and she was under this much pressure. And if she had gone on, she probably would have injured herself and gotten even a lower score for the team and put the team in, And so she made the decision that she thought was best for herself and everybody involved to keep herself alive. And Carl was talking about who he was talking about was Carrie Strug, and in the I forget which Olympics. I think it was 2004. But it wasn't beam; it was vault, and she vaulted on an injured ankle, and she landed on and hurt her ankle. She never competed again because her injury was so bad. And it's really easy to armchair quarterback if you don't know what you're talking about with this situation. And so I would just say to both of you that this is probably a subject that you just need to not talk about.
Well, I recall saying earlier on that only she knows what's in her head, and only God knows what's in her heart, and I'm not going to second guess her on that part of it. My armchair quarterbacking came from all of the people that were cheering her on, who perhaps didn't know what they were talking about. So if I were Jane, if I were limited by not being able to talk about things I don't know anything about, I got 2 hours here to fill.
Yeah, that's true. Well, this subject, she didn't flub. She lost her air sense, and for gymnasts, it's called getting the twisties. You don't know where you are in the air. You can't do what you're doing, and sometimes.
Well, why don't you tell us about all the commenters? What did you think of that? Praising her for quitting. To me, that was the essence of the story. That's why I brought it up, not because she quit, but because so many people thought it was such a wonderful thing that she'd done, who probably don't know any more about gymnastics than I do.
Right, and what would you say? Well, she knew her mental health was in a state that it was dangerous for her and the team. So what she did was best for her and the team.
Let's change our focus. Let's change our focus, Jane. Let's change our focus from her to all of the people that commented, on what a heroine she was because she quit. That's the reason that I brought this up on the show, not because I have such a powerful understanding.
To say she was a heroine because she quit, she made a good decision, Bob. She made the decision that was right for everybody involved.
Well,
so if you want to say that was heroic, yes, it was.
I didn't say that. I'm talking about the comments that came out on Twitter and Facebook and all the other places, lionizing her because not for the reason that she quit, but because she quit. To me, that's the essence of this story.
Well, no, Bob, she didn't quit for no reason. You don't.
I didn't say that. I said lionized her because she quit. Period. And to me.
And that is just a trite statement. You can't say, well, she quit, so she's a hero.
Well, anyhow, if you don't want to talk about that part of the story, then I'm going to thank you for calling in. Okay, because we've talked about the other part significantly. I think we've pretty well covered that part. Carl is back. What, do you want to come online now, Carl, and say that you did know what you were talking about?
Can you hear me, Bob?
I can.
He won the gold in '78.
Is Jane still there?
Did you have something to say, or did you just want to ask me a lot of questions, Carl?
No, I just wanted to comment that I'm glad that Jane came on because she added her comments as someone that's actually been in gymnastic competition. This is the first time I've ever heard that in this entire thing. If someone had come out from the team and explained, it's like someone in gymnastics had sprained their ankle or hurt themselves and couldn't continue in the competition.
It's like if I didn't come to the show because I had a sore throat, right?
Well, the thing is, what she says makes sense. As someone that's been in gymnastics, I didn't know that. I'd never been in gymnastics.
Well, how could you when all of the commenters, not all of the commenters, but everything that drew attention to itself was praising her because she quit. Not because she quit for a good reason, but because she quit. Even the official with the Olympic team. Oh, it's a wonderful thing that she did. And
I think with an explanation as to why, then I could say, well, she made, the officials could explain she made a good decision because of this, and explain about what happens to some gymnasts.
But see,
that's the first explanation I heard.
Carl, I have to keep bringing the conversation. I don't care about gymnastics, frankly. I've never been. I'm not really built very well for a gymnast. I don't think there have been very many 6'4" gymnasts. The part that I cared about was she was really, really good at what she did, and I've seen videos of her. and she was really good. That's the part that I cared about. And I said, why she quit, that was only God knows her heart. Only she knows what's in her head. But the part to me that was really interesting was how many people leaped onto it and tried to make a political leftist anti-meritocracy point out of it, that it's better to quit than to be good at what you do. That's basically where most of the folks, that commented were. And that's what I wanted to talk about. I'll defer to Jane Flores' superior expertise on gymnastics. I'm just wondering if Jose found that term I'm looking for.
I found that term, but I can't pronounce it. Proprioception? Proprioception? It's the sense of self-movement.
Yeah, spell it for us.
Proprioception.
Yeah, proprioception. Yeah, that's it. So, there's smell, taste, sense of touch, and proprioception, knowing where your body, the orientation of your body is in a particular medium. So what Jane is saying is that when she lost her proprioception, that it was dangerous because she could have really hurt herself badly. And that I understand. And if she didn't want to be that forthcoming about it, I can even understand that. But I don't understand all of the cheer, hooray for Simone Biles, probably the best gymnast there ever will be. And she quit. Hooray for her. That's the part that I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I heard Jane's comments. Anyway, it did clarify for me what was going on, because, now I have some point of reference as to why the decision was made. I just wish it was more common knowledge as to, what the reasoning was behind it, because that's the first I've heard of it.
Well, now, of course, the worldwide international radio listening audience knows, so this will take a certain amount of pressure off Simone Biles, right?
Yeah. But I'm glad, that Jane called in and added some, perspective to it. It's the first I've heard that perspective, and it was helpful to me to understand what was going on. But I didn't, in any way take away from, and you didn't either, as far as Simone Biles. She's a spectacular athlete, and I think deserving of the greatest of all time title.
The only thing I wish that I knew about was Jimmy's take on the whole thing, but Jimmy didn't get to call in anymore. Okay, Carl. So next we've got Heidi. Which Heidi? Well, Heidi. All Heidis are Heidis, right? Good afternoon, Heidi.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
I haven't talked to you forever. How are you doing?
Good.
I heard her press conference this morning, and unless there was something after the press conference, what she said was, "I'm not having fun anymore." Now, that's not why you went to the Olympics, Simone Biles, to represent the United States of America and the flag. It's not about having fun. It's about representing your country. Now, if there was a follow-up to that press conference, I missed it. But that's what I heard this morning. And in my mind, she's a quitter. That's what she is. And for now, everyone applauding her, shame on them. And this girl that came and won the gold, and what did she say? I heard her just on the top of the hour of the news, how she said, I'm so proud of myself that I stuck with it. Hey, this is the Olympics. This is big time, big deal. There is going to be pressure. But that's what Simone Biles herself said. Oh, I'm not having fun out there. Now, was there something else after that?
That's enough. That's enough right there, yeah.
I mean, really, shame on us. This is the first time, Bob, since 1972 that I have not watched the Olympics. I only see it on feed on my phone. And I heard her press conference is very flippant. She was very flippant. And her attitude was just way, in my opinion, was just,
Connie, you got in just before the big halftime show, and
I'll let you go.
And good that you did. Good comments. Thank you, Heidi.
All right, take care.
Starting August 1st, pandemic unemployment assistance claimants must start searching for work to remain eligible for PUA benefits. 3 work searches a week are required. Work searches include registering on HireGuam.com, meeting with employers, submitting resumes and applications, and attending job fairs. Only a few are exempt from the work search requirement. This includes those working reduced hours, those in training programs, and self-employed individuals. Remember, PUA ends September the 4th. Now is the time. Let's rebuild our workforce. For more information, go to dol.guam.gov.
Mezcla, read all about it. Check out Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tuman for lunch. Serving up some savory seafood specials such as spicy garlic shrimp, candied salmon, or better yet, the local favorite, snapper or shrimp escabeche. Available only during lunch hours. Make sure to come down and try these tasty specials and more. Call 969-2652 for more info or to make a reservation. Located at the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tuman, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. A true taste of Guam.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Are there wider mandates coming? I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
With freedom comes responsibility.
President Biden announcing that all federal workers will have to demonstrate they've been COVID vaccinated to avoid new restrictions on the job, including
mask no matter where they work. Test 1 or 2 times a week to see if they've acquired COVID. Socially distance.
The White House says it's not exactly a mandate since workers have been given the choice of those alternatives. The president has also told Defense Secretary Austin to determine how soon U.S. military personnel will be under vaccination orders. The president says he's not sure he has the authority to order all Americans be vaccinated, but they're looking into it. Mr. Biden also urging cities and states to offer $100 incentives to people who get the vaccine. The money would come from unspent federal COVID relief funds. Part of the COVID relief plan, the Payroll Protection Program, comes to an end today.
The Paycheck Protection Program's liquidity fund gave money to small businesses through the Paycheck Protection Program, and it was going to dry up at the end of June. But the Federal Reserve extended it a final time to today, giving banks and approved PPP lenders more time to get the money they were giving to applicants. Many in the small business community argued for more time, as the early rounds of cash seemed to go to the larger companies. Separately, the Small Business Administration just announced a new portal meant to speed up the process of finding out if those loans will be forgiven. The Small Business Administration says more than $800 billion went out for more than 11.7 million loans.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal also ending this weekend the CDC's moratorium on evictions because of the pandemic. The president urging Congress to legislate an extension. Members of Congress have voted overwhelmingly to make themselves more secure on the job. Both houses of the Congress passing a $2 billion overhaul of Capitol security. The bill now heads to the president. America is listening to Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
City Council in Los Angeles has given final approval to a bill designed to reduce the number of people living on the streets there.
The new law bans sitting, sleeping, lying down, or storing personal property on a street or sidewalk near a driveway, loading dock, building entrance or exit, fire department equipment like a hydrant, daycare, school, library, and other facilities. The ordinance says the city will use a trauma-informed approach. Social workers and other professionals will approach encampments and help get those people into shelters. But the law also says the council will consider each encampment's location before enforcing the law. Some of the latest numbers on the population come from the federal government, which estimates that there are more than 66,000 homeless people in LA County. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
A plane carrying more than 200 people from Afghanistan has landed early this morning at Dulles Airport in Washington. The passengers, Afghan translators and their families who worked with the U.S. military during the hostilities there. A startling discovery for police officers in Baltimore.
Baltimore County Police say they conducted a traffic stop late Wednesday night in which officers found the bodies of 2 dead children inside the car. We're only told the driver of the vehicle is in custody as Baltimore County detectives continue to investigate. The bodies of the children now at the county medical examiner's office. No cause of death or IDs given. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Former U.S. Senator Carl Levin has died. He served 6 terms in the Senate, representing the state of Michigan as a strong proponent of the American automobile industry. While no cause of death has been listed, he had been battling lung cancer. Former Senator Carl Levin was 87. Japan is about to extend its coronavirus state of emergency in Tokyo in the wake of record-breaking surges in infections while the city hosts the Summer Olympics. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Hey, big news! Now you can listen to The Point on radio.com. And radio.com gives you so much more. Local news stations give you what's going on in your community. Get national news from CBS, CNN, or Fox News Radio. Take a break with one of the hundreds of music, sports, and talk stations. Love podcasts? Radio.com has thousands of true crime, comedy, kids and family podcasts, and more. Listen anytime, anywhere. On your PC, smart speakers, and a variety of connected devices. Or download the Radio.com app now from the App Store or Google Play.
Mezcla, mezcla, read all about it. Check out Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tuman for lunch. Serving up some savory seafood specials such as spicy garlic shrimp, candied salmon, or better yet, the local favorite, snapper or shrimp escabeche, available only during lunch hours. Make sure to come down and try these tasty specials and more. Call 969-2652 for more info or to make a reservation. Located at the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tuman, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so here we are after that big halftime show. I hope you enjoyed the gymnasts out there on the field during the show. An added feature to our show, along with the drill team, the marching band, the synchronized card sections up in the stands, since the governor has said that if we can have 100% occupancy in the stadium now. So we just added gymnastics and some star gymnasts out doing their routines on the field during the halftime show. I hope you enjoyed it. And I want you to notice that they were out there during the entire halftime, which lasted, 7 minutes, and not a single one of the gymnasts quit during the halftime show. So I want to spend a little more time on that. I got some really interesting comments on Facebook, but let's have a little education first, which is what Tall Tales is famous for. How many times have people told me, Bob, I learned so much on your show. It's just the greatest show if you really want to learn something. So the word for today is proprioception. Proprioception is also called kinesthesia. That sounds like something to do with television, doesn't it? Proprioception or kinesthesia is the body's ability to sense its location, movements, and actions. It's the reason we're able to move freely without consciously thinking about our environment. Examples of proprioception include being able to walk or kick without looking at your feet, or being able to touch your nose with your eyes closed. Some things can affect proprioception. Temporary impairment can come from drinking too much alcohol. Yeah, I didn't know that.
You're aware you're hitting the ground.
Yeah, which is why a sobriety test includes touching your nose while standing on one foot. Injuries or medical conditions that affect the muscles, nerves, and brain can cause long-term or permanent proprioception impairment. Age-related changes also affect proprioception. I've noticed that my sense of balance isn't as good as it was 40 years ago. Proprioception is basically a continuous loop of feedback between sensory receptors throughout your body and your nervous system. Sensory receptors are located on your skin, joints, muscles. When we move, our brain senses the effort, force, and heaviness of our actions, positions, and responds accordingly. Normal proprioception lets us move freely without giving your movements a second thought. Abnormal proprioception causes symptoms that can interfere with even the simplest of activities. Well, that's enough on proprioception. So we had Jane Flores call in here, who was a gymnast herself when she was younger. And she didn't use the term, but it was clear from what she told us that as she watched Simone Bowles do whatever it was, I called it a flub. Jane Flores. Jane Flores said that she noticed that Simone Bowles had, I don't remember the term she used, but apparently had lost proprioception for the moment and was not quite clear on her orientation.
I think bodily perception, something like that.
Yeah.
Or air sense.
Air sense, yeah. So according to Jane Flores, when a gymnast loses that, it can be very dangerous because the gymnast could fall on their head. And so she added that dimension to it. And so said, it's good that she quit. Well, yeah, maybe that particular event, but did she have to hang it up for the whole Olympics? And again, I've said repeatedly, I'm not going to sit in judgment of her, what's in her head or what's in her heart. The reason that I brought this up was how the left has capitalized on this as a way of bashing America, attacking meritocracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Jane didn't want to talk about that. She made her point about gymnastics, air sense, and that Simone made a good decision so as to avoid injury.
Well, Bob, as a certified armchair gymnast, I would like to, the whole idea of air sense or body awareness, proprioception, is a part of the score. And I understand that there's a danger in all sports because there is a skill level you do have to adhere or exceed to, but your sense of where your foot is placed determines how well you score in that event.
Yes.
So, as a reason why you left the sport, I'm not really buying it too much. I'm not claiming to be an expert on anything but being a spectator.
Yeah, well, I've never fallen off my armchair being an armchair quarterback after I threw a long one, But yeah, you're right. And regardless of how you label it, it was a mistake. It was a flub. It was a mistake. She lost her air sense, etc. And the gymnast's ability obviously depends on his or her ability to maintain that air sense. So when she lost it, she just had to quit.
I mean, anybody can be perfect when there's nobody around, but as a spectator sport, when there's an audience in the crowd, that's the performance that you're supposed to rise to.
And that's why being a good talk show host is an art form.
Absolutely.
You're not doing it when nobody's around, right? Yeah. So, again, I wanted to talk about the reaction of those who were praising her, not knowing any more about why she quit than you and I did. And my sense was, well, it's fortunate that she quit. She was a member of a team. She represented the United States. It's unfortunate that she quit. Maybe she had a reason. I don't know. But I'm not really excited about the fact that she quit. All right, so let's see what our tailgaters had to say. Colin Clark says she's weak. Her coach is soft. Her fans are soft. Colin Clark says, I didn't pick my... Well, he's talking about something else. My mispronunciation. I confused Colin's first name with a punctuation mark, right? He's not a colon. He's not a period. He's not an apostrophe. Yeah. Nor is he well, I won't go there. Then we had Jose come along saying for whatever reason she has quit. The left is exploiting her to paint their own narrative. For me, what makes Simone Biles a standout is her backstory. Her performance on that mat is secondary to me. Is there something special about her backstory, Jose?
I think so. She's, I believe she's Catholic for number one.
Okay.
And she has gone through a couple of things to make her a really good focused gymnast.
Oh.
Anybody goes through the life that she went through and still perform the way she has in the past is exemplary to me.
Okay. And we've got Pamela Duvall comes along and says, same with songwriters and actors, fans demanding more. And let's see. Colin Clark says, I learned in the USMC, can't means won't. Can't is a synonym for won't. And then he says, that's her opinion, and you know what they say about opinions. Yeah. And then Jane Flores, or as you were, Jose comes along, gives me the definition of proprioception. Pam comes back, don't take offense, Jane Doll. Bob's the talk show host. He can talk about any subject he wants to, and usually does, yeah. Somebody messed up on her physical. Pam Duvall, in other words, she screwed up. Stress, pressure, whatever it was. And then Pam comes up with proprioception. Way to go, Pam. Shelley Gibson gives Heidi 4 thumbs up. And Colin Clark, that lady and I think alike, talking about Heidi. Paul Davis, wrong. Part of competing in sports is to enjoy it. Okay. I never really got a whole lot of enjoyment out of football. Did you ever play football, Jose?
Never professionally.
Yeah. I was an interior lineman. I was a center back in the days when we played single wing football.
You got the initial hits.
I did. Yeah. And single wing football, T formation, you snap the balls between your legs and you got your head up and you know what's going on. Single wing, you're centering between your legs, and you get spilled all the time. You really get beat up badly. I didn't take a whole lot of enjoyment out of that. I played center linebacker on defense. I took a little bit of enjoyment. It's kind of fun tackling people, you know. But I didn't stay with it for the enjoyment. I stayed with it because it was what you did. You stayed with it, right?
You got you the letter jacket?
I got my letter. I lettered in my sophomore year in high school. You know, and it was a rite of passage. If you could go out for football and make the team, that was worth doing, even though it was really hard and it wasn't a whole lot of fun. It was fun for the quarterback, maybe, the fullback. Anyhow, that's Paul Davis. Part of competing in sports is to enjoy it. Franklin Paris, I remember, and inspired by those athletes who were involved in crawling to the finish line, or last runner who finishes last 2 hours after the race was over. This Biles is a quitter and not an inspiration to anyone.
Yikes.
And Pamela Duvall, right on Heidi. Troy Torres, Buenas Tall Tales. I cheer for Tall Tales. Hooray for that. Ishmael Velez says, word is that judges didn't know how to judge her because she was on a different scale than the rest of the competitors. So they were judging her unfairly, and that played with her psyche. Her coach asked her to step down because the judging was affecting overall team score. So that also affected her. Now, that's something we hadn't heard before. Their coach asked her to bag it. Gina Campos, if you accept the title as an Olympian, then live up to it. If you are there to enjoy yourself or aren't willing to give 200%, then you should have stayed home. This is the Olympics. This is Pam Duvall. This is the Olympics, not school gymnastics class. Sherry Iriarte. Sounds like there could be a backstory that isn't available to the public. Isn't there always?
There is one also, and Kellis called in to remind us that she was one of those who was abused by that doctor, that gymnastic doctor.
Nader, yeah. Brad Woods, Colin Clark, I can only get Lucia out that late when I give her a week's notice and 5-hour energy. I wonder who Lucia is.
Was that supposed to go public?
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We got somebody else in the green room here, probably on the same. Oh, it's Frenchie. First on French basketball. Then Jane Flores. I wonder how they play basketball in France. We'll find out. Frenchie, how do they play basketball in France?
Well, obviously better than the Americans.
Touche. As we say in France, touche, monsieur.
Yeah, here you go. You gave me a 10-foot pole here.
Uh-huh.
Well, just for your information, Bob, since the mid-'90s, there has been about 40 French players that play in the NBA as pros.
Whoa.
The most famous one is probably Tony Parker, who played from 2001 to, I think, 2019 or 2020. I'm not quite sure. And he was with the Spurs and the Hornets, and he won the championship several times. You have now on the French team 10 NBA players. And so it's not so much that the American team is not as good as it used to be. It's just that the other teams are getting a lot better, and that includes France, who appeared 10 times in the Olympics and won silver twice in 48 and 2000.
Well, Frenchie, 50 million Frenchmen can't be wrong.
Well, it's almost 70 now, Bob.
Go ahead. Go on, Frenchie.
Thanks to the African immigration level. And that's why we have good basketball players. We got a lot of Africans. So, yeah. So regarding Jane Flores' comments, I number one, you don't need to be a specialist to talk about anything. I'm not a nuclear physicist. but obviously I have opinions on nuclear power. And as far as gymnastic, when I was younger, I did parallel bar and floor exercise, and that does so. I really enjoy watching gymnastics, and usually I watch it this year not so much because of all the distractions like this one. And what happened is not so much that she quit. It's exactly what you were talking about. It is all the ESPN crowd who, instead of talking about sport, end up talking about social justice and equity and all these things, which have nothing to do with sports. It's obvious if you watch the Olympic teams over the last decades, and even at the Olympic Games in Berlin in front of Hitler, that the U.S. has had multicultural teams for many years, and that the stars of the sports that were represented were always lionized back home and respected for what they did as athletes and not as social justice warriors. So, and Jen talked about air sense, and I know that's something that can be difficult. When I was airborne, I did a lot of halo and lalo jumps, and which I can no longer do because I have an inner ear issue, which make me lose my sense of position in the air pretty fast. And that comes from changing position very rapidly, then you lose your sense of balance. And it's being a high-level sports competitor takes mental toughness and dedication, and also you need to have a sense of belonging. Even though you're doing an individual sports, you need to have a sense of belonging to your club or to your country team. And if you choose to accept to represent your country, you need to choose everything, not just the good, but also the bad. I have not heard that she complained about her air sense or anything like this. I just heard that she had some mental problems that she couldn't cope with. And as somebody noticed, she also was a plaintiff for sexual abuse by this team doctor who is now in prison in Michigan. So the good news in this whole thing was that a young American Asian lady won the gold medal. Sunisa Lee, she is from outside of St. Paul, and she's the first Hmong American to ever win a medal at the Olympics in any sport. And
talk about diversity, huh?
Oh yeah, and I'm very sorry General Wang Po has passed away, because I think he would have been very proud to have a young lady like that who thanked the United States, who thanked her family, and who thanked her teammates for winning the gold medal. She was very selfless and not selfish. And she's only 19 years old, and she was very inspiring. And I think that is the positive side of this whole thing. And the only thing that ruffled my feather a little bit with Jane in her intervention was that I had the feeling that she was not happy with men criticizing a female of color competitors. And this is kind of the side effect of this whole campaign of social justice and critical race theory and everything. And I'm sorry, but when you represent your country in any sport, or you represent your club in your championship, you need to have a sense of who you are. And when you accept that responsibility, with it comes some duties. And I think the reporters that made all those comments didn't give us a service by trying to push that woke nonsense forward, and rather that, if she really is what she says she is, a young woman in trouble, then she needs quiet. She needs support from her teammates and from her coach and from her family, and she doesn't need all that hoopla coming from the media who are going to dump her like a pair of old socks at the first occasion that they have. And this is very sad. And I thought this was not very apropos coming from Jen to make a comment, because it's actually a mirror issue of what we are living nowadays with that cancel culture that, well, if you don't have experience, you cannot talk about it. And I'm sorry, anybody can talk about anything. And this is why we have talk shows like Talk Tales.
Yeah, well, I've certainly not let the lack of knowledge about a particular subject keep me from talking about it, Frenchie. Thanks a lot.
Well, I was not going to underline that, but since you're talking about it.
Hey, thanks for helping out, Frenchie. Good talking to you.
All right. You take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's head for Wrigley Field in the 7th inning stretch, and then I'll tell you about a couple of offline comments I got.
Hafaday, this is Congressman St. Nicholas. Your congressional office would like to remind you that pandemic unemployment assistance is set to expire on September 6th of this year. We encourage the people of Guam to seek out active employment as much as possible, as jobs continue to remain limited, and we want to prevent hardship for our people at the conclusion of the PUA program. Thank you, and see to us, Mahase.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Okay, so here we are after the 7th inning stretch in Wrigley Field. That means just 2 more innings of Tall Tales left this week. Wow. Maybe when you get tomorrow, you get out a fungo bat and a baseball and have your own 7th inning stretch at home. So here's something interesting that Dale West posted. He said, I saw a story that she, meaning Simone Biles, was unable to take her Ritalin because it's illegal in Japan. She's been on it for years. Ritalin is technically a stimulant that is ordinarily given to hyperactive people for some reason. It's contraindicated, but it seems to work. So I hadn't seen that. I guess Dale saw it somewhere. Now I want to talk about a couple of the offline comments that I got here. I got one comment that the commenter says, it's clear to me that Simone's downfall is a result of climate change. Yeah, and then I have a text from Tina, from the Vice Speaker of the Guam Legislature, who said that the problem, that Simone Biles' problem all stem from the insular cases. Yeah, which is pretty much classic Tina. It came from the insular cases. All right, so I think we can probably move on here. Sherry Iriarte says, which would make her able to focus. Talking about the Ritalin. Ritalin is an upper, would help you focus, right? Could be considered an advantage over the other athletes. Reason she was able to focus and become so good. Well, that's interesting. An interesting supposition, I suppose. Okay, next item on the card is Chris Duenas versus Therese. And what we're talking about here is the RISE Act and the All Rise program. And what did you say about the All Rise program on our title for today, Jose?
It says, how can something called All Rise be only for some?
Yeah. So we had the RISE Act, which was passed by the last legislature. It was a bill that was introduced by Raging Lee, passed. The governor allowed it to become law without her signature. She had great reluctance for implementing the law. She said she thought it was so unfair that government employees would not be eligible for an $800 payment. When, of course, everybody, including the Attorney General, said, you know, there's obviously a rational state purpose here because the government employees never missed a payday, and these other folks did. So she didn't do anything with it. And then later on, she said, I'm going to come out with my All Rise program, and I'm going to include government employees in my All Rise program. But she also said, you know, the act that passed was limited to $30 million. So when the $30 million is gone, that's the end of it. The director of RevTax said, first come, first serve. If we run out of money, the man who snoozes loses. It's kind of the rule. So then we had Jim Moylan, you know, right? I think I characterized him as kind of the St. Paul of the legislature, writing constant letters to the Corinthians and to the governor, asking her to implement the RISE Act, and obviously not understanding the difference between a statute and an executive order. Because the key fact here is that the RISE Act did not, there aren't funds available to pay the RISE Act except from the money that comes from the national government. And we all know that because of Wong versus Kamina, the governor doesn't need an appropriation to spend that money. So when she came out with her All Rise Act, that's what she was talking about. So, you know, Moylan kept going back and forth on this over and over again. Therese, Terlahi, and Moylan introduced a bill, Bill 164. And I have a story here that ran in the Daily News that shows that finally there's some understanding of the difference between an executive order and a statute. The headline of the story is Legislature, Rise Payments in the Hands of the Governor. No members of the public appeared for the second hearing on RISE Act payments this week, but lawmakers took to the floor to speak about the program being the responsibility of the governor. The RISE Act lapsed into law in December 2021 and would provide payouts of $800 to eligible applicants, making up to $40,000 annually and $1,600 to joint filers. The law has not been implemented by the administration and is set to expire this December. But Governor Leon Guerrero instituted in March the All Rise program, which mirrored the provisions of the RISE Act, while expanding eligibility to government employees and retirees who were not included in the law. The decision not to increase the $30 million funding cap for the program while expanding the applicant pool has been a sticking point between Adelup and the legislature. Officials have stated that funds will be issued on a first-come, first-served basis should the money run out. Speaker Therese Tetlahi's Bill 164 is aimed at removing obstacles to residents receiving payments through the RISE Act by removing the $30 million cap on payments, streamlining the verification process, and extending the payment period out to December 2023. Now, but according to Senator Chris Duenas, the matter was already in the governor's hands. So, that's cheating, Chris. You know what you're talking about. That's, within this era of meritocracy, of anti-meritocracy, you shouldn't do things like that. Appear to have an idea of what it is that you're talking about. The original RISE Act, this is what Chris said, the original RISE Act, Mr. Chairman, doesn't exist anymore. It's a public law that has gone unfulfilled, that basically has been usurped by the governor's authority to take it into her own hands, Duenas said. Let's give him a hand. While he supported any bills that would amend the law, the only reason for passing them would be so that the governor would not be able to refer to the RISE Act when speaking about restrictions on the All Rise program, he said. Exactly right. Senator Joe San Augustine agreed with Duenas about the separation of powers. San Augustine said, we introduce a bill, we pass a law, we can make the amendment by executive order. You can pretty much change everything if you have the authority, then do so. That's what Joe San Augustine said. We just need to make it clear so that people at home understand you're going to get some of the rise or they're not going to get the rise. There was no surplus money in the GovGuam for the legislature to appropriate for the program. Senator Tello Taitigui said, let's be real, Mr. Chairman, that this money has to be authorized by the governor, not this body. Even Tello got it. Taitigui stated, adding that lawmakers should continue to push for the administration to use American Rescue Plan money to provide for the program. Exactly right. Senator Joanne Brown added that the public needed the RISE Act more than the bill when the bill was originally passed. And here we are today still debating different reiterations of the original legislation that was passed, that the governor herself did not sign into law. Tetlahi has requested that Governor Leon Guerrero fix the situation through executive order. Even the person that sponsored the bill, 164, finally caught on. I wonder if we should ask that the administrative director of the legislature install speakers in the session hall so that at 4 in the afternoon, senators could listen to tall tales so they could get a handle on these complicated subjects like the difference between an executive order and a statute, Wong versus Kamina, the RISE Act, and the All Rise program. Glad to be able to help out. Okay, so next is Rodney Jacob versus the Social Security Administration. But I think maybe we'll head for Churchill Downs before I launch into that. I'm still Drive-Through Jack, where are you? We need to talk about mutual consent.
To the greatest generation who endured the Japanese occupation, To those who risk their lives for our freedom, to those who continue to protect our freedom and keep our island safe, we thank you. To the people of Guam, our viewers and generous supporters, happy Liberation Day from PBS Guam KGTF Channel 12. Catch the 3-part special program 77th Guam Liberation Village to Village We Are Survivors on demand on PBS Guam's YouTube page.
Special thanks to Choice Broadcasting.
Starting August 1st, pandemic unemployment assistance claimants must start searching for work to remain eligible for PUA benefits. 3 work searches a week are required. Work searches include registering on HireGuam.com, meeting with employers, submitting resumes and applications, and attending job fairs. Only a few are exempt from the work search requirement. This includes those working reduced hours, those in training programs, and self-employed individuals. Remember, PUA ends September the 4th. Now is the time. Let's rebuild our workforce. For more information, go to dol.guam.gov.
There we are, Churchill Downs in Louisville, the home stretch. You know, we just got one more lap here on Tall Tales, and it's all over for another week, I'm sad to say. Next item on the card, Jacob versus the Social Security Administration. Rodney Jacob, local lawyer, very good lawyer, did a workmanlike job for the Schaller twins. And there's an article pretty much about him. The harm on Guam is real. Congress discusses access to federal programs in the territory. The inability of Guam residents to have full access to federal support programs, quote, has split families up, Attorney Rodney Jacobs said during a congressional hearing early Thursday morning. We have people from Guam that have moved to the CNMI and other places to get these benefits, said Jacob. He represents a Guam resident with a disability who sued the federal government after she was denied supplemental security income payments. So I've explained before, SSI, supplemental security payments, are administered by the Social Security Administration, but they're not part of the Social Security program. SSI does not, there's no requirement that you pay in Medicare taxes or Social Security, FICA taxes. In order to be eligible for SSI, you must have a disability and you must meet the requirements of the means test. If you make too much money, you're not eligible for SSI. And Rodney represented twins. I got into this yesterday. The twins lived in Pennsylvania. They were both receiving SSI. One twin moved back to Guam. She lost SSI. Rodney had perhaps picture-perfect plaintiffs, identical twins, same disease, same program. A very, apparent case of a denial of equal protection. He won at the district court level here, the District Court of Guam. The United States took it on appeal to the Ninth Circuit, where it resides pending the resolution of a similar matter by the Supreme Court. Now, Tina, in her Resolution 56, made a big show out of this. And she got Rodney to testify, saying pretty much the same things here. But now, finally, Grijalva's committee is taking this matter up, whether or not people living in the territory should be eligible for SSI. And that's where we pick up here. Rodney says people on Guam have moved to CNMI to get these benefits. And the reason for that is that people living in the CNMI are eligible for SSI payments, although people living in Guam are not. And the reason is that if you examine the covenant between the United States and the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas, it's in the covenant. Now, if it's in the covenant and they get it, what are we doing down here other than wasting time with Tina talking about the insular cases? So going on here, the House Natural Resources Committee held a hearing related to providing parity for the U.S. territories for Medicaid, SSI, and food stamp programs. We will be focusing on the historical inequity in the application of federal programs in the U.S. territories and what we can do to obtain parity for Americans who call the territories home, said CNMI Delegate Gregorio Sablan, the committee's vice chairman. And I got to bring this up every time we go through this. Everybody wants to talk about parity for the bennies, but nobody wants to talk about parity for paying federal income tax. And that's the reason that we don't get the same bennies that some of the states, the 50 states do, because we don't pay into the federal treasury. Sablan and other territorial representatives earlier this year sent a letter to the Biden administration asking to expand accessibility and eligibility in the territories for federal programs and to include those changes in the president's fiscal 2022 budget. We explained that Americans residing in territories face long-standing barriers that limit or exclude them equal access to Medicaid, SSI, and the SNAP program, plus temporary assistance for needy families, etc. And we know why. Guam Delegate Michael San Nicolas, who testified during the hearing, noted that the ongoing effort in Congress to provide more Medicaid funding to Guam, where the money for the program has finally been capped. The House Energy and Commerce Committee this month approved a bill which would provide an 83% federal match for Guam Medicaid expenses, capped at $130 million per year. If the measure becomes law, the additional funding would be in effect for 8 years. While it isn't full parity, it does buy us some time, San Nicolas said. This is a serious window for us, put SNAP for CNMI and SSI for our territories directly into the language so that we can close those loops while we advance our Medicaid initiative. Now we're back to Rodney. Attorney Jacob represents Katrina Schaller, who sued the Social Security Administration in December 2018, challenging the inability of Guam residents to receive support payments under the SSI program. The failure to provide benefits to people on Guam with disabilities violates the Organic Act and also the equal protection clauses of the Constitution, Schaller's lawsuit states. Schaller, who received monthly SSI benefits when she lived in the mainland, lost them when she relocated to Guam to live with relatives. Congress specifically excluded Guam residents and other territorial residents from the program, but residents of the CNMI are eligible because the program is part of the Commonwealth's covenant with the United States. And again, we're asleep there. And we don't care about we don't need no stinking covenant. We'd rather bitch about the insular cases. Schaller won her case in the U.S. District Court, but the Justice Department appealed to the Ninth Circuit. The appeal has been paused since March, pending a U.S. Supreme Court ruling in a similar case filed by a resident of Puerto Rico who also lost his benefits. Jacob said it has been estimated that as many as 24,000 Guam residents, wow, could qualify for SSI payments if the program opens up to them. Now, one of the reasons that the United States, and this Jacob's litigation is not the first time this has been to court. And one of the reasons that the U.S. always advances for not making the SSI program applicable in the territories is because it would cost so much money. 24,000 here, but at Puerto Rico with 3.7 million people, that would be a big ticket item. And the second reason is that because we don't pay into the Treasury. Okay, here's Jacob's final quote. He did a really good job for the Schallers, but he wants to be a demagogue instead of a lawyer, which is unfortunate because he doesn't need to do that. He can carry the day strictly on his legal arguments. Here's how the article winds up. It's contrary to common sense, human decency, and sound public policy to deny these important public benefits to a set of American citizens just because they live on Guam, Jacob told the committee. But what is true is that the harm on Guam is real. It's not hypothetical. It deeply affects real people, real Americans here. So, I once again, I think our approach here on the emotional or on the non-legal basis is wrong, because we want to go on this. Neil Weir, do you think that people should be denied the right to vote just because of their zip code? Yeah, I do. I really do. And the argument, of course, is that we don't contribute to the Treasury, so in a sense, we should consider ourselves lucky that we get any benefits out of the Treasury, and we get almost everything. So we talked about statehood before. I've pointed out that as a practical matter, statehood is a practical impossibility, because the state with the smallest number of people would be Wyoming, 550,000 people. Nobody's going to look with favor on 170,000 people having the same kind of representation, the same number as a state. And then we don't contribute to the federal treasury, and at least one of the not requirements, but qualifications for statehood is that, you have to have a good constitution. You have to show that you're able to govern yourself in a territorial sense, and that you will contribute to the federal treasury. We don't contribute to the federal treasury. We may never be able to contribute to the federal treasury. But here's the argument that we make. Although we don't contribute to the federal treasury, we are an extremely important part of the American family, because our defense posture really depends on having Guam within the American family. So it may not be a dollars and cents contribution, but it is definitely a strong defense contribution. Forget about that stupid speech that Tony Babauta made to the UN. Forget about the UN. Just concentrate on that aspect. They were a very valuable member of the American family, and as a member of the American family, we'd like to have the same kind of treatment as the other kids. That's the argument that we have. But we don't want to use that, because we want to beat this independence, this separatist drum. And apparently, although they're small in number, very vocal, an awful lot of the politicians don't want to stand up to them. So, let's see, I got about 2 minutes to go. Another Joe has a parting comment for near the end of the show. I have a feeling, if you're not recording right now, you probably should, because Another Joe is going to have some real stentorian rhetoric. Go for it, Another Joe.
Bob, I was just saying, I'm going to miss you guys. I won't be able to listen to you all the way until next month in August.
Yeah, it's tough, Another Joe. All the way to next month, yeah.
In August, yeah. Tough. So I'm going to miss you guys a whole, is it 72 hours or more?
Yeah, well, even though we're doing it in July, the show is a very august talk show, right? Another Joe.
Hey, come on. Can I leave you with a parting thought? Gotcha.
Please do it.
Come back.
Again?
Okay, well, thanks a lot. I'll wait. I'll wait till you get back in the air next week.
Okay, Another Joe. I can't wait. Anticipation. So, let's see. I got, 2 minutes to go?
About a minute.
About a minute to go, huh? I was going to talk about lefties and cops, but I'll save that for next week. And the title of the article is Anti-Gun Mayors Spend Big on Taxpayer-Funded Security. And I've got a laundry list here of people like Warren Wilhelm. Do you know who Warren Wilhelm is?
That name sounds familiar.
He's the mayor of New York City.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but he calls himself Bill de Blasio. Yeah, sounds more ethnic, you know. Yeah, so guys like him and the mayor of Chicago and Portland and these other places who want to defund the police are spending, in some cases, millions on private security to protect themselves from the masses that don't need to be policed, apparently. So that's what I want to talk about next week. I have another interesting article. Lawyer sues Legal Aid Society for discrimination after being attacked for her criticism of critical race theory. So as usual, I have a really exciting, interesting, informative show next week. So tune in, 1600 on Monday. We'll see you next month. So long.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Federal workers ordered to get the shot. Will private citizens? I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That's under consideration at the White House. President Biden not sure they have the authority.
It's still a question whether the federal government can mandate the whole country. I don't know that yet.
Well, he may not be able to order you to get the vaccine. He can offer incentives.
The president is now trying to use leftover COVID relief money to pay people to get the shot. He thinks $100 per person is enough of an incentive.
Fox's Peter Ducey, but no such benefit for federal employees. They've been told if they don't get vaccinated, they'll undergo tests several times a week, be required to wear masks at work, and socially distance from their coworkers. The president has also asked his defense secretary to determine when and how to make the vaccine mandatory for those who are serving in the U.S. military. The nationwide moratorium on evictions born of the pandemic will be allowed to expire Saturday without an extension. The Census Bureau estimates more than 3.5 million people are at risk of being evicted over the next 2 months. Longtime Michigan Senator Carl Levin has died. He served 36 years in the Senate, ending in 2015. He'd been battling lung cancer for several months. Carl Levin was 87. Tornado damage reported in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia. A car dealership looks like it took a direct hit.
The showroom completely destroyed. Windows blown out, doors blown out, HVAC systems off the roof. 4 people inside that building were injured.
Reporter Chris O'Connell of Fox 29 in Philadelphia. Damage also reported at 2 mobile home parks and in southeast Ohio in the village of Wintersville. A twister has damaged more than 24 homes. Wall Street higher on Thursday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 153 points. NASDAQ up 15. The S&P 500 added 18. Early morning Dow futures are trading about 140 points lower, and Asian stock markets have closed Friday lower. America is listening to Fox News.